May 14th. We'll start as we always do with a reminder for everyone to turn off their cell phones so that we're not distracted during the meeting, and to ask our student councillor to start with our municipal safety share. Councillor Wisnik.
Hello everyone. So today we're talking about the workplace safety for young workers. Young workers often are at a greater risk for injury during the first few weeks on the job. Employers' job is to ensure the responsibility of their employees, but it is also the responsibility of young workers to know the hazards in the workplace that they are working in. Some tips are to read the labels on any chemicals, to use protective equipment, report any hazards and violations, to make sure that they're safe at all times, to ask questions when in doubt, and to use proper lifting techniques, and to educate themselves whenever possible about the health and safety on the workplace, and to recognize and respond to any hazards that they may face.
Thank you, Councillor Wisnik. Certainly with our summer staff coming on board soon, it's pretty important that our young folks are working safe, so I think that's a good safety share. We're going to do additions or deletions to the agenda now. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I have a motion to read. That Council hereby accepts the agenda for Monday, May 14th, 2018, regular meeting of Council as circulated or amended, moved by Councillor Gingras, seconded by Councillor Fox. Are there any questions regarding the agenda? All in favor? It is carried. Now, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest for tonight's meeting?
Yes, I have a disclosure of interest on item 9C, as well as the bylaw that goes with it, 12C.
So noted. A declaration of interest for Councillor Gingras. Are there any other disclosures of interest? Hearing none, I have a motion to read. That Council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on Monday, April 23rd, 2018, as circulated or amended, moved by Councillor Fox, seconded by Councillor Gingras. All in favor? We're carried. There are no delegations tonight, so we'll give the floor to Student Councillor Wisnik.
Okay, so next Wednesday, May 23rd, there's going to be a TED Talk presentations at Marathon High School Library. There's going to be students from Margaret Toomey, Holy Savior, Pick River, and Pick Mobert, as well as the high school students in grade 11 and 12, doing various TED Talks. TED Talks start at 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome to attend.
Thank you. And soccer?
Oh, there's also soccer this week. I don't remember if it's in town. It's not in town.
It's in Wawa.
It's in Wawa.
Go Falcons. Thank you, Councillor Wisnik. Our first,
Question? What is it Tip Talks?
TED Talks.
TED?
Yeah.
T-E-D?
Yep.
And what is that?
They're different talks. So a lot of the grade 11s and 12s are doing, there was one I think on hygiene that was one of my friends did, and she talked about how to prevent hygiene problems and whatnot.
Okay, and TED stands for? Do you know?
I have no idea.
oh, Ms. Wisnik.
I have no idea, I'm sorry.
For technology, education, and design, Councillor Fox. They're like the old student speeches.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we'll have grade 8s, grade 12s, grade 11s.
Now you're talking my time.
Yeah. They're like rebranded speeches. Councillor Wisnik? Good? Thank you. We'll start now with council reports. Our first report is a report on appointment to committee or board, 75th Anniversary Committee. Copy to all members. Am I reading it? It's what? It's a mayor's report. So pursuant to the municipality's procedural bylaw, I am bringing forward this report on the appointment of council members and residents to the town's committees and boards. For Marathon's 75th Anniversary Celebration Committee, Jean Rose. This appointment will expire on December 31st, 2019. Moved by Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Gingras. Any questions? No? All in favor?
No, I
Oh,
have a
there's a question. Yep.
Yeah, does that bring our board to a full complement yet? Or okay, so how many?
No, Your Worship, we only have 4 right now.
Okay.
And how many can we have?
I believe we had 6.
Can have 6. So if people are interested in the community, there's certainly still 2 positions, and I'm sure even once we reach 6, if people want to volunteer, there'll be more than enough work to be done. It is, yeah, it's a big deal to celebrate our 75th, so thank you, Jean. Or well, actually, I should first of all, before I congratulate her, I should call the question. All in favor? We're carried. Congratulations, Jean. Oh, I went out of order there on you, Councillor Wisnik. Now it should be your student council report. Our next reports are CA report, a report on waste management agreement with Biktagan Anishinaabe to be delivered under a separate cover.
So just before I start, Your Worship, it seems that we have an issue with Shaw Cable tonight, and they seem to be broadcasting the council meeting from Sault Ste. Marie and not our local council meeting.
Woohoo!
So we will follow that up again with Shaw out of Sault Ste. Marie, but of course this will be broadcast on YouTube after the council
You know
meeting.
what? At least one Sioux team's still playing.
So with that, I'll start with the waste management agreement. So in 2016, the town undertook and completed an environmental screening process, ESP, to allow for an increase to the geographic service area for the Camp 19 landfill site to accept waste from Biktagan, Heron Bay, and Puckasaw National Park. The ESP was approved by the Ministry of the Environment in October 2016, and the town now has the necessary approvals to accept waste from the parties identified as per the environmental screening process. Administration has been meeting and working with members of council and administration from Biktagan over the last 12 months to develop a transition plan and working agreement to allow for Biktagan's waste to be hauled to the Camp 19 landfill, as well as for Biktagan residents to utilize the town's waste transfer site for waste drop-off, recycling, and hazardous waste disposal. This was done in advance of the Ministry of Natural Resources closing its landfill site located on Highway 627, which has traditionally been used by the parties identified. The main clauses contained within the negotiated municipal waste transfer agreement include: during the term, the municipality will allow for the transfer of solid and domestic waste from the First Nation to the municipality's landfill site, located off Camp 19 Road. The municipality will accept solid waste from community members of the First Nation, and at the cost incurred by that member at the municipality's waste transfer site, located within the town boundaries. So that's at our waste transfer station. Coordination of the provision of solid waste service within the reserve boundaries shall be the responsibility of the First Nation. The First Nation will create a waste transfer plan, including a waste diversion plan to be reviewed every 5 years with the town. The municipality will continue to allow the First Nation to utilize the municipality's recycling program through an external contractor for pickup and delivery. And the First Nation will be responsible for the costs, operation, and maintenance and transportation of their solid domestic waste from the reserve land to the landfill site. The financial implications are that the annual tipping fee payable by the First Nation for the provision of solid waste transfer services will be based on fee per tonnage as per the town's approved fees and charges schedule. At this point in time, it is unknown as to the total amount in revenue that will be collected through this agreement. This figure will be able to be benchmarked after a full year of the agreement being in place. So the options for council are: approve bylaw 1924 to authorize the corporation of the town of Marathon to enter into an agreement with Biktagan Anishinaabe to provide solid domestic waste services, or 2, do not approve the bylaw. And your administration is recommending that option 1 be approved and that the corporation of the town of Marathon enter into a municipal waste transfer agreement with Biktagan for a term of 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skorczynski. I have a motion to read. that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on waste agreement with Bictigan Anishinaabe, and further that a bylaw be adopted entering into a municipal waste transfer agreement with Bictigan Anishinaabe for a term of 5 years. Moved by Councillor Fox, seconded by Councillor Gingras. Any questions of that report? Councillor Fox.
I do have one, the term of 5 years, that's good. And it's also subject to our tipping fees. Is that, if we do increase the tipping fees next year, does that flow through?
Yeah, so the way that the agreement is worded is that it's the annual amount approved by council as per fees and charges. So in this case at the landfill site, it's based on weight times tonnage. So it would be applicable to the agreement going forward.
Good, thank you.
So just a couple of questions. I always try to think of what would the experience be then? Do we have a sense of what a resident in Bictigan is going to have? Will there be a truck that comes door to door and then one load to our transfer station, or will Bictigan residents come one at a time during that window?
So really what we've provided and what we've agreed upon is both options. From two different perspectives. One is both myself and Mr. Hishka have worked very closely with Bictigan, so that they're actually going to create their own residential curbside pickup program. They're in the process of acquiring funds to be able to purchase the truck. They're going to need to do that. So on a weekly basis, they'll do a curbside pickup and they'll access Camp 19 directly. But residents will also have the ability, should they be in Marathon, to utilize the waste transfer site, just like our residents, where they're charged the minimum tipping fee times the amount of the load that they have, and that's what they have to pay. So both options are available to them, but they are implementing a curbside pickup program, which has already started, actually.
Okay. And so any other questions? I have one more. The other thing is, the word that struck me was the municipality will continue to allow them to utilize the recycling program. Currently, is it recycling that we pick up in Bictigan?
No, our recycling program is by a third party who collects our curbside.
Okay.
That same group collects as a third party for Bictigan as well right now.
Okay.
So the way the agreement is worded is that as long as we continue that service, that we'll continue to offer to their community as well.
Well, and certainly that's great because the lifespan of the landfill is what matters, and getting as much out of the stream obviously is a great thing. So thank you. Then I guess no more questions. I'll call the question. All in favor? We're carried. It is nice to see partnerships there. Thank you. Next report, a report on council recreation discounts, policy number CO0007, copy to all members.
So at the April 23rd regular meeting of council, administration presented a report to council that outlined any history and details regarding council members receiving recreation membership discounts. There is no current policy that governs this item for council. Upon presentation of its report, administration was further directed to develop a policy for council to consider to grant serving council members and their immediate dependents living in home a 50% discount off of town recreation charges, such as memberships for all town-owned facilities. Attached to this report is a draft policy presented for council's review. If council chose to implement a 50% discount off of town recreation charges and their for council members and their immediate dependents, using family rate discounts, it could have an upset budget cost of $4,900. There are no options at this time, and your administration presents this report for council's review and final decision.
Thank you, Mr. Skarczynski. I have a motion to read that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on council recreation discounts, policy number CO0007, and that policy number CO0007, council recreation discounts, be adopted as presented, and further that a copy of this policy be included in the town's policy guideline manual. Moved by Councillor Gingras, seconded by Councillor Fox. Any questions? Councillor Fox.
I don't see an age limit on this. As we all know, today's society, children do move back home after university. Are they still covered, or are we going to implement an age on this?
So it would be the same, I would envision it being, it's ultimately council's decision, but for, by what we say in-home, for employees is 18 or under.
18 or under.
Once you reach the voting age, you're no longer eligible.
Any other questions? I had one. We had talked about kind of having this ready for the next term of councils and as potentially a carrot to entice other people to run. I think that's good for democracy. Is that still the idea that this would be not right now, but this would be for the next term of council?
So certainly council could table this item tonight and not vote on it, and then leave it to the new council to make the final decision on this particular policy if you chose to do that.
Oh, okay. My feeling was we could take that off of the new council by passing it, but having a date to start it after the election cycle.
Yeah, sorry. So ultimately, council at any regular meeting of council can approve or disapprove a policy. So certainly, it could be approved tonight and then be either re-amended or be removed at a further council meeting. So by passing it tonight with a date doesn't necessarily restrict anything at all.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, or just pass it as is?
I'm fine with just passing.
Okay, then let's then we'll vote on the bylaw as it is. So all in favor? We're passed.
Just one
Oh.
question. Sorry about that. Do we have advanced polls for this election? Do you know? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So if we could, Councillor Fox, we'll highlight that in our next report, which deals with some of the election issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've carried that for the minutes. Our next report is an administration report. Report on restricted acts after nomination day, the lame duck periods. Copy to all members. Ms. Lees to report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The name of the report is Restricted Acts After Nomination Day, also called Lame Duck. This report is to provide council with information related to restricted acts after nomination day, which is also known as lame duck. Section 275 of the Ontario Municipal Act provides certain restrictions to the council of a municipality in an election year. The basis for determination for restrictions is as follows. After nomination day, which is July 27th, but before voting day, which is Monday, October 22nd, the determination shall be based on the nominations to the new council that have been certified. So an example is if 3/4, so 4 in our case, of the members of the outgoing council are reoffering, we are not in a lame duck situation. After voting day, if 3/4, again 4 in our case, of the outgoing council are not elected to the new council, we will be in a lame duck situation until the inaugural meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, December 3rd. If a basis for determination is met, council restrictions would be as follows. The appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality, the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality, and finally, the making of expenditures or incurring any other liability which exceeds $50,000. With the above-mentioned exceptions, C and D do not apply if the disposition or liability was included in the most recent budget adopted by council before nomination day. Nothing in the Act prevents council from delegating authority to any person or body. Your administration recommends that subject to the basis for determination being met and certain restrictions applying to council that in the event of an emergency, meaning a situation where the immediate acquisition of goods and services is essential to prevent serious delays, injury, damage, or to restore or maintain required services, council adopts bylaw number 1925, which delegates emergency purchasing powers to the CAO clerk during the 2018 lame duck periods.
Thank you, Ms. Lees. I'll have moved and seconded to put on the floor. Fox and Gingras. Any questions of that report? Maybe just it's pretty clear, but I just want to make sure I've got it. So if we're in lame duck and like all of a sudden something for recreation comes up and we do have to make a major expenditure or purchase something, it's the CAO that will make that decision. There won't be any delay. Okay, so there's still a pathway to making decisions. Okay, so I think I understand that. Councillor Fox, did you have questions about the election itself?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Then I guess I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. Favor? We're carried. Our next report is a report on properties eligible for tax registration. Copy to all members. Welcome, Mr. Verbo.
Good day. According to the town's tax collection policy, a list of all properties eligible for tax registration must be presented to council. This list is to be all-inclusive. Section 373 of the Municipal Act enables a treasurer to register a tax arrears certificate against the title of that land if there are 2 years of tax arrears. There were several changes to the Municipal Act in 2017. Previously, tax registration could not take place until taxes were outstanding for 3 years. All the properties in arrears for 2 years were notified last summer that the Municipal Act had changed and their properties were eligible for tax registration. Attached schedules detail the properties that have taxes outstanding from 2016 or earlier. The cost of registering properties is approximately $2,000 each. All costs associated with tax registration are fully recoverable, providing that the property can be sold. In 2017, there were 25 properties, which included 10 Marathon Pulp Inc. properties. They were eligible for registration, totaling $136,000 in outstanding taxes, if we exclude the Marathon Pulp properties. Note that in 2017, properties could not be put in registration unless the taxes were outstanding for 3 years. This year, there are 28 properties, including Marathon Pulp. Excluding Marathon Pulp properties, the exposure is $97,000. In 2017, there were 11 properties in tax registration, totaling $527,000. This year, there are 12 properties, with the exposure being $551,000. This is being presented for council's information only.
Thank you, Mr. Verbo. Any questions? I feel like I should have one, but I don't. Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Verbo. Councillor Gingras, you're declaring on this one? Our next report is, do I need to get it moved and seconded to put it on the floor with Councillor Gingras in the room?
No.
No? Okay. Our next report is the report on the theatre RFP, copy to all members. Welcome, Ms. Morin.
Okay, since 2008, the Marathon Theatre has been operated by Nancy Ryan as a private operator. Mrs. Ryan has leased the space from the town through a contractual agreement which expires July 31st, 2018. In February of 2018, Mrs. Ryan informed the town that she would be leaving Marathon in June and was giving notice to end the contract on May 31st, 2018. A call for proposals was placed in the Marathon Mercury and on the town's website in March 2018. A request for proposals package was prepared with a closing date for proposals of March 29th, 2018. One proposal was received within the specified time frame, which met the outlined proposal criteria. A valid proposal was received from Crystal, Carly, Chantal, and Bonnie Gingras. A number of discussions have taken place, and a draft agreement for the operation of the theatre and concession services has been mutually developed. The key terms of the agreement are outlined below. Rent of $1,300 per month when the arena is open, August to and including March, and $1,000 per month when the arena is closed, April to and including July, from August 1st, 2018 to July 31st, 2022. Taxes are included in the monthly rent, hydro payable at $750 per month, and hours of operation similar to previous years. Financial implications. It is estimated that over the term of the 4-year agreement, the following approximate revenue will be generated. For rent would be $57,000. Options. A, enter into a lease agreement with Crystal, Carly, Chantal, and Bonnie Gingras for a 4-year lease period. Or B, re-advertise for proposals for the Marathon Theatre and concession services.
Recommendation, your administration recommends option A, and that the town enter into a lease agreement with Crystal, Carly, Chantal, and Bonnie Gingras for the operation of the Marathon Theatre and concession, and that the appropriate bylaw be adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. And any questions of that report? Councillor Fox.
The rental agreement, is that the same or more or less?
Rental agreement in terms of revenue?
Yeah, the $1,300 per month.
It's a little bit, it's slightly different than the previous agreement because for certain months, it's actually a higher amount during the operation of our regular season. And what we've done going to more of the shoulder schedule in the off season, it's actually a lower amount per month. So we feel it's very fair.
Okay. Ms. Wisnick? No film questions? I have one, and this goes back to, I was on the committee that wrote the proposal for getting that new equipment at the theater. And when we wrote that proposal, we said it was going to be a theater and cultural center. And the agreement was that like once every, I think it was once a month originally, but it was from time to time, if there was a cultural event that needed to happen, that space could be used by the community. I think, for sure, I remember Chantal Gingras was on that committee as well. Could we look at that wording again, or at least see if that original intent to have that opportunity to have cultural events take place could be worked into that agreement somehow? Because that was certainly something that ended up being a sticking point when the school wanted to bring in a film or somebody else that we had those discussions. I don't know if there's a way to reopen that conversation.
So certainly that exists within this agreement, and it really deals with exclusive and non-exclusive rights to use the facility. Okay. And really the way that it's worded is obviously during peak times, where we want the third-party operator, of course, to make money operating the facility, that they have the exclusive use of that. On non-times, let's say, for example, a Sunday morning, we would have the ability to utilize the theater. I'm just using Sunday. There are other times, of course, okay, but we do have that built into the agreement.
That's fantastic, because I know that was part of that original agreement. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, that sounds like a well-worded agreement. We'll call the question. All in favor? We are carried. It would have been fun to say no to just two of us. That was... Ms. Gingras, come on back in. The motion was carried, just in case you were wondering.
Thank you.
And congratulations. That's working with family can be a challenge, so I wish you well. Our next, the check run. No check run today?
No, right in number 12, bylaws.
Then our first, we'll go into the bylaws. We'll read a motion that bylaw number 1924, a bylaw to authorize the corporation of the town of Marathon to enter into a waste agreement with Beatgon Anishinaabe to provide solid and domestic waste services for a 5-year period, be read a first and second time this 14th day of May 2018. Moved by Councillor Fox, seconded by Councillor Gingras. Any questions? All in favor? We're carried. I have a second bylaw. That bylaw number 1925 being a bylaw to delegate authority to the acting CAO clerk for emergency purchasing during the should read 2018, not 21. Wow, that's a long way in the future. 2018 lame duck period, council period be read a first and second time this 14th day of May 2018. Any questions? Or sorry, moved by Councillor Gingras, seconded by Councillor Fox. Any questions of that bylaw? All in favor? Councillor Fox, all in favor? We're carried. And finally, we have that bylaw. Sorry. Do I make a note on here of that? You do, okay. That bylaw number 1926 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement between the town of Marathon and Crystal, Carly, Chantal, and Bonnie Gingras for the operation of the Marathon Theatre and Arena concession for a 4-year period from August 1st, 2018 to July 31st, 2022. Be read a first and second time this 14th day of May, 2018. Moved by Councillor Fox. I will second that motion. All in favor? It is carried.
So, Your Worship, I'll suggest you do the third reading of that bylaw out of order while
Right, okay.
Councillor
so we'll-
Gingras has declared.
Then for Councillor Fox, we'll make a motion that bylaw number 1926 be read a third time and finally passed this 14th day of May 2018. Any questions?
No.
Moved by Councillor Fox. I will move second. All in favor? Bylaw 1926 is carried. Last Ms. Gingras to come back in. And we'll read a bylaw now. That bylaw is number 1924 and 1925. Be read a third and final time and finally passed this 14th day of May 2018. Any questions? All in favor? So, and that's carried. Again, congratulations, Ms. Gingras. This is now unfinished business. A request was received from the Township of Baldwin seeking support of the resolution pertaining to Bill C-71, copy to all members, and I believe we asked you to find information from the police on this one.
You're correct, Your Worship. So I did follow up with our staff sergeant with respect to this bill and their position on Bill C-71. And the response from Staff Sergeant Mitch Sticks is the Marathon OPP is in a position of support for Bill C-71 in the interest of public safety.
Okay, you know what, I forgot to call it. Can I get it moved and seconded, put on the floor? Okay, thank you. Any questions of that finding? I guess my question then would be, so to read this, then if, knowing that our local detachment is in favor of C-71, then their suggestion is to vote no on this.
So my suggestion to council would be to table it.
To table it? Okay, with the movers and seconders' permission, can we table that? Okay, we will table, just leave it, perfect. And finally, new business. We have a discussion is required regarding the 2018 AMO conference attendance and delegation requests.
So if we could separate, I'll separate out the two items. So one is which members of council would like to attend. We do need to make those arrangements. So it's in Ottawa, August 20th to the 24th, I do believe. Okay.
Just a question, I think
I'm
not eligible to go.
I do believe it's Councillor Lake and Councillor Tabushi if they so choose to go.
I won't be in the province, so I won't be. And we'll have to maybe have administration follow up with Councillor Tabushi.
Sure. So we'll list Councillor Tabushi as well as Mayor Dumas.
Mayor
Dumas
Dumas
is-
NCAO.
Correct.
Okay.
So Louise is just writing that motion right now.
Okay.
So in terms of one of the things that I had previously sent out to council and I did put on the agenda tonight are any actual delegation requests that council would like to see administration submit.
Once again with the Ministry of Health, follow up on funding for our senior citizens home.
Proposing. Okay. Given that we're going to be in Ottawa, and really, when I think about, reoffering and what the next few years bring, the arena project is certainly, to me, the big next step. Who is it, not just in terms of delegations, but are there some folks we should see maybe within the bureaucracy that might know of the programs that are coming out? We have a federal election coming up. I think if there's going to be money for active living centers, it's going to be around that election. Who do we line up to try to be first in the door and for people to know we have a partnership with the First Nation. We have, you know, a community that is embracing these sorts of things. So that to me would be the big kind of push for the mayor and the CAO to try to make that connection.
And certainly we can do that. So we can make a request with the Provincial Ministry of Infrastructure, who is responsible for the bilateral agreement with the federal government. And we can, seeing as we will be in Ottawa, we did this last year as well, is we'll make an outside request to meet with the minister or chief of staff at the Federal Ministry of Infrastructure as well to bring this project forward.
Perfect. Any others? Okay. And certainly as we move forward, any others, what's the deadline for needing to submit those?
We have some lead time, so I'll certainly follow up with Mayor Dumas and Councillor Tabushi, but I do like to get them in before we move into the summer break to make sure they're into the system.
So again, if we think if you think of one as councillors, then we can forward it to administration.
Absolutely.
And we have a new motion. That was very quick. That the following, the motion is that the following individuals' attendance to the AMO conference scheduled for August 19 to 22 in Ottawa, Mayor Dumas, Councillor Tabushi, CEO Daryl Skorczynski, and further that expenses be paid according to this policy. Moved by Gingras, seconded by Fox. All in favor of that motion? We are carried. Thank you. Announcements before we go in. Does administration have any announcements?
No announcements for
No
administration.
announcements. Then I will announce that members will be going into a closed session immediately following the adjournment of the regular meeting to discuss a matter regarding an identifiable individual. And our last motion will be a motion that we now do adjourn at 7:36 p.m. Moved by Councillor Gingras, seconded by Councillor Fox. You know what? Before we actually do the vote to carry, I would like to say congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce for a trade show well done. It was absolutely packed when I was in there, and it seemed like every time I drove by there was a zillion cars in the parking lot. So that was a very well done. The voice of North Superior was there selling the event. So congratulations, and it was a great community event. So with that being said, I would see, is the motion carried to adjourn? We are adjourned. Short and sweet.
Saturday morning.